We were discussing 5 Days at Memorial, episode 3.
Episode 3 is a big one.
We're picking up right where we left off. A lot has happened. Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Perez.
And I'm Wesley Long.
And we're bringing you a fresh new take on disaster preparedness.
Welcome to Disaster Class.
And welcome back to another episode of Disaster Class. Wesley?
Yes, Jason.
So our last episode, we're picking up right where we left off.
Yeah.
It was a little bit, got to get back into the mindset. But our last episode, we were discussing 5 Days at Memorial, episode 3.
Episode 3 is a big one.
A lot has happened in episode 3, which is why we're kind of breaking this up into a 2-part episode.
At least 2-part.
At least.
We don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah, we don't know how long this episode is going to last. So we're just kind of shooting off the cuff here. So we had last episode, we had just finished up talking the power, the water was coming, right? The levees had broken, they learned, and they are starting to kind of go through, how are we going to evacuate the hospital?
Yeah.
So, the
moral obligations and the discussions.
Yeah, we got into some of the ethical decisions that they were going to have to make, and we talk about try to do as much of this beforehand than in the heat of the moment.
Right.
So we're kind of pick up where we left off. So now we talked about the helipad in the last episode. They hadn't been used in 18 years. So now they send a crew, some of the maintenance people up, I think, and a couple of the healthcare workers also
to see if it's stable. Right.
Is it usable? Because right now the hospital is surrounded by water. You got more water coming. So a ground evacuation is not going to be possible. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have to do it by air. But can the hospital helipad actually support a helicopter landing? Hasn't been used in 18 years.
So a little whoopsie there. So they go up there, they check it out. They make the determination that they're not sure.
Yeah, there's some visible erosion.
They see that there's not just erosion, there's corrosion.
Corrosion, yep,
there's
that's the word.
Rust on the metal structures, and we don't know if this thing can support.
Some of the concrete's kind of coming off.
So the decision was, let's get a saw. Mm-hmm. Let's cut through take a sample, like a core sample, to see how deep this corrosion is going and if this can. So 2 of them leave. One of them's still up there, and he sees a helicopter, and he just waves at it. They thought he was waving them, so this military chopper now just lands on this untested helipad.
And he sees it's coming in, and he's waving them off.
He's waving them off, but
in reality, he's waving them on.
Right.
So there's that.
And they land, and they're like, do you need help? And he's like, Savior, yeah, we do need help. Like this, it was like one of these little glimmers of hope that you have in the episode. And I'm like, okay, great. Okay, good. They got a helicopter. We can rinse and repeat this. The helicopter can probably take a bunch of people. This will be great. And
then the guardsman's asking, you guys need help.
Right.
And he's like, yes. So
and he calls it in.
He
calls it in, gets clearance. Yeah. Yes, we are here. We're going to help you. And they say, we can take
one person.
One person.
One person.
So now back to the previous discussion that we had in the previous episode about this.
Who's that? Who's going to be the first one out?
How do you choose who goes?
And now, so he goes running down to them, and he's like, hey, there's a helicopter here. They can only take one person.
And they're here now. You have to make the decision right now. Now, I give kudos to the incident commander. We're not going to get into the moral if her decision is right or wrong. That is not for me to judge. Right? Not for me to judge.
And we weren't in that situation.
What I love is, as an incident commander, she immediately decided and put that plan into action. Love that.
And she said, take one of the neonates. Take one of the babies.
One of the babies. But it's not the decision, right, that I liked. I liked the fact that she made a decision immediately as an incident commander, because she didn't even really want to be incident commander. She didn't even want that responsibility. She really didn't have any training to be that person. But the way she handled that, at least as depicted by AppleTV on this series, phenomenal. Immediate. Boom.
For that one scenario anyway, yeah.
Great. So they go find a neonate.
Yeah. And so, I mean, if you're not actually watching the show, but just to kind of paint the picture, small, premature baby,
Usually in an incubator.
In an incubator, they're having to ventilate manually.
So, like, 4 nurses are taking, I can't say that, 4 females, it could be nurses or doctors. Like, I can't make the determination based on sex. 4 women are carrying this entire incubator up these flights of stairs because, again, no elevator, right, for the helipad. Crazy scenario. The one woman who is literally bagging the neonate.
Ventilating it.
Just gets in the helicopter and takes off. You see her, she doesn't know where she's going.
She's just getting off
she
there.
She no longer has the incubator. She just has to keep pumping.
Mm-hmm. And if you've never done that before, it can get tiring.
Powerful scene.
Yeah, very powerful.
Powerful scene. But that was a save, hopefully, right? I don't know the end result, but that felt good.
I'm trying to remember. It's been so long since I read the book. But
that felt good.
Yeah, so then one patient.
One patient.
That's all they could take.
One.
So then the National Guards that were there, then they talked about how they said, I think it was like 30 or 35 patients they could evacuate by truck.
By truck.
They had the big, military trucks that can kind of wade through the water. So now they're scrambling, they're carrying, they're trying to load up the truck. Turns out they can only take about 20.
Right.
But it's better than nothing.
Better than nothing.
And better than one.
Better than one.
So,
but again, it goes back to the previous discussion with the previous, right? You have to have a list. When help arrives, you have to have a list of who's going, because you can't then take an hour and a half to make a decision because the help has to go.
Yeah.
So you have to have prioritized and triaged your patients, and there has to, I hate to use this terminology, but there has to be a pecking order. Right. There has to be, in order for any decisions to be made in real time.
And really, it kind of goes back to in the last episode we talked about triage.
That's it.
And in EMS, we're used to that.
Yeah, but we make our decisions a little bit differently in the field, right? What they're facing right now is they have to make decisions for the patient, but also for everyone else that's there, right? Correct. So if you have a patient that is demanding a high volume of resources, you know that that's not sustainable right now. So even if they're not necessarily as sick as someone else, right? It can't just be who's the sickest goes first. It's you, and I hate to put it this way, but and again, as a dispatcher, my logistics, right? This for me is not extremely difficult. This component, making these types of decisions even on the fly, it's a matter of resource management, right? So let's just use some numbers. Say you need 15 resources to manage this individual, and you need 5 resources to manage that person. Even if they're sicker, I'm sending the 15 resources because I need to recoup those other 10 resources so I can use it for other people. Right. It's just, if that's the only factor, you know what I mean? But that is a major component in making these decisions. Now in EMS and dispatch, I have to make those decisions on the fly, right? That's what I'm trained to do, right? So for them, they have to make those decisions. It's resource management.
Yeah.
It's
a difficult decision.
Oh, it's not easy.
Yeah. But it comes down to, and I think, triage essentially comes down to recognizing you have limited resources.
Correct.
Right? Like you said, it's resource management.
Yeah.
And so that's just something that you need to be thinking about when you're planning for yourself and your family. You kind of have to go through your own triage of sorts.
You have to.
We're prioritizing, recognizing those limitations in your resources, recognizing that help may not always be coming, or it may be delayed.
And that's what I was going to say. Part of that resource management for individuals, right, we bring it to the lens of our everyday person. It may not necessarily be managing the resources of your family, but if your action plan is heavily reliant on when I call 911, they'll be there in 8 minutes because that's the national response time, I'm going to tell you right now, you probably need to think of another plan.
Right.
Because on a blue sky day, it's an 8-minute response. But when it's not a blue sky and something's going on, and if your family's expectation and your emergency action plan is based on when I call 911, no matter what, they will be here in 9 minutes or they will be here in 8 minutes, and from there we're going to do X, Y, and Z. You got to rewrite your plan.
Yep.
Because those resources are not going to be available to you.
Correct.
So that's what you're basing your entire plan on. Yeah. Scrap it. Start over.
Yeah. I mean, better to plan to not have them and then have them versus plan to have them and you don't.
Correct.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yep. So we didn't talk about life care at all.
Right. Yeah. So as Memorial is making their plans to evacuate.
Right.
Yeah, we're kind of backtracking a little bit, but
it is important for communication.
If we recall, there's a kind of a separate hospital operating
on the 7th floor.
In the
that
7th floor.
entity is its own hospital.
Correct.
Right? So it's owned by its own corporation. Basically, they're just renting the space, the floor space from Memorial Hospital. But they are on their own. As a result, they have not been part of any of the planning for Memorial Hospital.
So they learned that Memorial is evacuating, but they're like, oh,
well, what about us?
What about us? Who's going to help us? And they're like, well, you're a separate hospital. You should have your own plan.
And they're like, well, we don't have a plan.
And we can't get in touch with corporate. Like, they're so, man.
Again, it's just another huge miss. It's a lack of communication, and it's a huge miss. Neither hospital had an evacuation plan.
And then did the Life Care like, oh, well, they're actually in a building it's owned by another corporation.
Right.
They should just be a part of there, but there's no communication.
There's no communication. And all this could have happened on a Friday 3 weeks prior over pizza.
Right.
Or over gumbo. Right? I'm just saying, it could have been so much different. And we urge you, and we know we have emergency managers that are listening to this. One actually reached out and said they wanted to teach our course, right? So that's really cool. You got to use the blue sky days to your advantage.
To plan for the gray sky days.
You got to plan ahead.
Yeah.
Got to plan ahead.
Crazy. Yeah, there's so many lessons wrapped up in this story. It's just, I mean, this is why the whole situation has become a case study for emergency managers,
from every
for
aspect.
Healthcare administration.
I was looking at your next bullet point, even that, sending corporate emails to tenant.
Yeah, so
like I'm Nuvant, right? So like for me, it used to be Danbury Hospital, more of a privately owned company. Now we're part of the Nuvance network, which is like 8 hospitals over 2 different states. So this, not saying anything like Nuvance is like tenant. Definitely want to keep my job, not saying that. But you can understand what's happening when they're trying to contact corporate. We've seen things and concepts like that because when your ownership changes, they have their different playbook. It's just that simple. So again, on the blue sky days, have these conversations, have these plans, have that communication going back and forth because you're going to need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. So we're going to pause real quick for this week's sponsors.
Now, when you need an emergency plan, you need Doberman Emergency Management. Now, whether you are buying a home and want to know about your local hazards, or you are a professional needing additional support, Doberman Emergency Management can help. Visit DobermanEMG.com today to learn more.
Instinct Ready is here to help educate, prepare, and equip you for disasters. Everything from disaster preparedness education to quality survival products. Use promo code DISASTERClass at InstinctReady.com today for 10% off site-wide because preparedness starts at home. All right, let's head back to the show. So we kind of fast forward a little bit. And actually, we talk about this one thing. I mean, this is more of an emergency management point versus something for our everyday citizens. But the one family that was depicted, I think it was the LeBlancs, the guy whose mother was in the hospital, his wife's paramedic, and they started kind of making their plans to go infiltrate, as you say.
Love that word.
Infiltrate the city to try and go and save his
his mama. Yep.
So they meet up with at a fire station, and they roll up and try to see if they can help insert themselves into the response.
Right.
It's probably a better way of saying.
Look, and when you watch it, you'll see they were like, "Hey, we have to get into the city," but what's happening is most people are leaving.
Yeah,
it's hard to get in.
Correct.
But if we go under the guise, but for an altruistic reason, we go under the guise of we are coming to assist and volunteer, they might let us in. Then they said, hey, who's going to be coordinating response? Let's go to a firehouse because they've got the firefighters who will have to be activated. And they understand the concept of volunteers because volunteer firefighting is a thing. So that was the plan for infiltration. And again, I like using the word. I'm going to probably use it 3 or 4 more times because it's just a really fun word to say. You don't get to say it every day. Infiltration. So their plan is to infiltrate, but it is for a good reason, right? He wants to save his mom, right? Again, so I'm not taking anything away from them. Loving this guy right now. Kudos to him. But they go to the firehouse. They start first the firehouse, like, get out of here. We got nothing for you. She then talks about some of her credentials and her background. I'm like, all right, cool. These people probably can help. Yeah, we'll put you on the roster. So they start to mobilize, and he's in the truck. Mm-hmm. Kind of cool.
Yeah, but before that,
shouldn't happen, but kind of cool.
they're all just kind of.
So that's a whole other conversation about resource management and the lack of blue sky planning. So you've got a whole firehouse. So this thing about, because there really is, and this is another word you never get to use, and I'm going to use it. And if I use it wrong, I hope our viewers will comment, because that will be showing that they're alive and they're paying attention. The juxtaposition, right, of the Memorial Hospital needing to evacuate without an evacuation plan, having 4 women carry an incubator upstairs, right, versus going to the firehouse where you've got trained firemen who know how to do evacuations. Literally, this is what they're trained to do. Sitting around, watching TV, not activated or mobilized because there's no communication path to them. Literally, those people in the firehouse could have all been at Memorial Hospital moving patients up and down.
Correct. Yeah.
What an absolute waste and shame.
I mean,
hold on. Juxtaposition. Yeah.
You don't hear that one every day.
Nope. Nope.
But if anyone can pull it off, it's Wesley Long.
Everyone try. And if not, call me out. Put it in the comments.
Oh, we have too much fun.
We do.
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole
sad.
The whole Hurricane Katrina story, not just Memorial, but I mean, the whole thing is just a complete and utter epic fail on massive proportions.
On so many levels. Yep.
To have resources just sitting there idle and they don't know where they're needed or what to do. I mean, it's this is why these are case studies.
Correct.
Right? Because we can learn from these lessons.
Right.
I mean, so much of the emergency management field has evolved since the Hurricane Katrina incident, you know, and a lot of good things have come from it. Unfortunately, it was result of a bad situation. Correct. But a lot of lessons and new initiatives and things were implemented as a result. So kind of just going back to the whole purpose of why we're going through this.
Yeah.
Learn from it.
That's it. Lessons learned.
Yeah.
And use it for your family, right?
Absolutely.
So again, our community emergency planning class.
Correct.
So important.
Yeah, and so if you haven't taken our community emergency planning course, we really encourage you to do so, because it helps you to go through these process of making these decisions beforehand, rather than in the heat of the moment, where we can see it's like, as we're watching this, it's like having to make these really critical, difficult decisions in the heat of the moment it's not always going to work out good, or maybe you're not going to make the best decision. Correct. So if you can do as much of the planning ahead of time.
You preempt that on the blue sky days. You take the bulk of that heavy lifting, and you make those decisions when it's easy, when you got a full belly and air conditioning.
Yeah. So we fast forward, and so we are now, the water's coming in. The maintenance guys are trying to do all they can to hold off the water from coming into the basement.
In a very dangerous situation for them.
Yeah, because they're in, like, there's already water in the basement. They're standing
They're trying to literally ladle water out of the panels.
Sandbags.
It's crazy. Crazy dangerous.
So the water breaks through, starts filling up, and then you just kind of watch, and the lights start flickering.
That's it.
And then they're out.
They're out.
And then you hear and if you work in healthcare, it's a very scary sound. And it's the sound of ventilator alarms start dinging, because now they're on battery power. They're not connected to power.
Correct.
And so now these patients that are basically
relying on that to live,
relying on a ventilator to live, they've got
minutes
left on backup power.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's it. So their entire ICU, the NICU, all of that, ventilators, all the incubators, anything that's running on power,
done.
That's it.
So that's where the episode ends. And it's it's getting bad, and unfortunately it's going to get worse as we progress through this story. So we're going to watch the next episode, and then we'll get back to you.
So sobering.
So that's episode 3, 5 days at Memorial, streaming on Apple TV.
Yep.
You can go check it out there if you want to watch it. Let us know your comments. As always, there's homework, Wesley.
There is homework. So we would like you to, like, subscribe, 5-star rating. We would love for you to infiltrate the juxtaposition. Put that information in your comments. We want to hear from you about this episode and about anything else. Like how we just threw that in there. Like it kind of rolled off the tongue. I'm
Comment on Wesley's use of the word juxtaposition.
And infiltrate.
And infiltrate.
Don't forget infiltration. That's very
Are
important.
we going to have... Oh, we should have a segment like Wesley's word of the day.
We should just do some hashtags. Hashtag juxtaposition and infiltrate. You got to hashtag it up, bro.
Anyways, if you have a question, you have a preparedness tip, a disaster story to share, send us an email at disasterclass@instinctready.com or send us a message on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. And doing so will put you in running to be featured on the show and win some cool prizes.
Yes, absolutely.
Like a Disaster Class t-shirt.
Yeah, we can make that happen.
Which you can also get at instinctready.com.
Yes.
If you want a Disaster Class t-shirt, you want a Disaster Class
swag.
Sweatshirt, yeah, get your swag on.
Yep.
So
or our swag on.
Yeah.
Get our swag on.
Get our swag on.
Yeah, we should end up. We've done enough podcasting.
This is our third episode that we've recorded today. I think it's showing.
It's been a long day.
It's been a long day. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to Disaster Class. Stay educated.
Stay prepared.
Stay equipped. Class dismissed.
Class dismissed. See you guys.
Disaster Class is part of the Readiness Lab, the home for podcasts, webinars, and training in the field of emergency and disaster services.